central banks in a race to the bottom to destroy the purchasing power of their currency. If we know that's going on, and they are the ones that are doing this. If you look at the pace at which global debt is ballooning, it's taken on a whole different meaning now. It's gone hyper parabolic. And this mechanism tells us, or at least it should, that we are more than likely very near a cracking point, a breaking point in the system. And that's why I look towards next year, past the presidential selection, to say, I think things could potentially change dramatically. But for now,
nearly every country globally has a central bank, a public institution that manages a country's currency and monetary policy. These banks wield extraordinary power. Controlling the flow of money and credit can influence economic growth, inflation, employment, and financial stability. These factors can, if managed well, provide politicians with economic boosts around election time, but often at the cost of long-term economic health. In recent years, central banks have gained substantial independence in setting interest rates, shielding them from direct political influence. This autonomy allows them to implement strategies such as quantitative easing, where they inject money into the economy by purchasing financial assets. Additionally, they keep interest rates low to stimulate borrowing and spending, aiming to bolster economic activity and mitigate the impacts of downturns. Despite these efforts to stimulate growth, such policies can have unintended consequences for everyday consumers. One major risk is inflation, where the prices of goods and services rise faster than people's incomes. This erosion of purchasing power diminishes the value of savings over time, affecting individuals' ability to maintain their standard of living. Famous investor Gregory Mannarino highlights that the wealthiest individuals, often the top 1% and 2%, safeguard their wealth by avoiding large cash holdings due to inflation risks. Instead, they invest in assets less susceptible to currency fluctuations and inflation, such as real estate, stocks, bonds, and precious metals like gold and silver. These assets historically retain value during economic uncertainties. This contrast in strategies between central banks and the super-rich underscores differing attitudes toward financial risk. While central banks aim for economic growth through monetary policies, the wealthy focus on diversifying investments to protect and grow their wealth, reflecting fundamental differences in responding to economic challenges and opportunities. Now, we present the clips of Gregory Mannarino's insights from his recent video. Before we continue to delve into this discussion, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates.
When people talk about the rich or the super wealthy, these people more than likely are cash poor. They have liquid assets here, but they're not holding a lot of central bank issued currency anywhere around the world. The 1% and 2%ers have their wealth in other things here. So we need to say, okay, well, what are they doing? What are central banks doing? And I could look. It should be a no-brainer to people, really honestly, that understanding the current situation here, and let's just look at what some of the root causes of the current global inflationary environment are. That is, again, central banks in a race to the bottom to destroy the purchasing power of their currency. If we know that's going on, and they are the ones that are doing this, well, why are they the ones here that are hoarding gold? Why are the 1% and 2%ers hoarding gold, gaining exposure to commodities here? Why? Because they realize where this is going, just as you and I have way before everybody else. And so understanding, we need to do what they're doing because they're not stupid. The 1% and 2%ers, then maybe they're privy to a little more information than, let's say, the average guy or the average girl is. So if they know something and they're doing something about it, well, that means that we need to take action as well. That's what this is all about here. Your channel, my channel, people like us who are trying to raise awareness. I've been telling people, raise your awareness, pay attention to what's going on, ignore the distractions, the deceptions. If we realize that, it just gives us enormous power. Again, at least from a financial standpoint, to realize, again, look, if we and I believe this is probably true for the people that follow our blog, at least both of our work, and I would hope this is the fact, that they understand that when you are looking at the global picture of vastly ballooning hyper debt, I mean, we're not just in a debt situation, we're in a hyper debt situation. What did we just hear last week from Janet Yellen, that the U.S. debt situation is sustainable? By that phrase alone, we know that it's completely not sustainable. We don't need Janet Yellen to try to convince us to something that we already know is completely false. But this mechanism is going to keep going. And in my opinion, look, we're witnessing global debt. And I urge people to look this up for themselves. Don't take my word for a thing that I say. Okay. I want people to let their fingers do the walking. It's not like you have to go to a library anymore and look this stuff up. Everything's at your fingertips here. If you look at the pace at which global debt is ballooning, it's taken on a whole different meaning now. It's gone hyper parabolic. And this mechanism tells us, or at least it should, that we are more than likely very near a cracking point, a breaking point in the system. And that's why I look towards next year, past the presidential selection, to say I think things could potentially change dramatically. But for now, I think the opportunities lie in a couple of places. One is staying long the stock market. I know this might sound insane to people, but if we realize that rates are going to remain suppressed, that currency is going to accelerate until it's not, and we watch the MMRI as you had brought up, that's an amazing risk indicator. It's not the end all, but it does give us a window, a picture as to where we should be putting cash to work. Now, if we realize that the stock market is going to remain propped up, the illusion of the market is going to be maintained till the selection here, that means that other assets are going to become undervalued more so than they are now. And again, gold, that brings me right back to gold, silver, platinum, palladium, commodities across the board. And in my opinion, I also believe cryptocurrencies too.
Central banks are the real powerhouses behind the financial system, even controlling the flow of information. Gregory says that if you look closely at mainstream media, you'll see a curious pattern. Major financial news outlets like Bloomberg, Fox Business, and CNBC often run the same stories at the same time, with almost identical phrasing. This isn't a coincidence. It's a coordinated effort to shape public perception and ensure everyone hears the same narrative. For those of us outside the mainstream bubble, it's obvious that the information being fed to the public is pre-scripted. With its vast reach, mainstream media plays a vital role in this scheme, far surpassing the audience of independent voices. This allows central banks and their allies to manipulate the majority's mindset, keeping people distracted and unaware of the real issues. One of the main tactics Gregory sees used by those in power is creating division among people. By fueling political and social conflicts, they keep us fighting each other instead of uniting against the true problems. Central banks keep inflating the money supply and buying up assets, positioning themselves as the ultimate lenders and buyers of last resort. This approach pushes the economy into a fragile state, with small and regional banks failing and power consolidating among the larger institutions. The public remains largely unaware of these maneuvers until it's too late.
I think people need to realize that the system, everything that we're seeing is now is happening by design. Okay, I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but nothing that we're witnessing is just again a comedy of errors that got us here. This is deliberate. Who runs the economy? Who runs the financial markets, the financial system as a whole, the monetary system as a whole? It's a central bank, so they control everything, even the flow of information. If you watch, anyone that watches the mainstream media notices, and I notice this all the time and it drives me crazy, a particular phenomenon. That is, they say the same things word for word at the same time. You turn on Bloomberg, you turn on Fox Business, you turn on CNBC, all of a sudden, by some miracle, at the same moment in time, they're telling you the same story, and they're saying it in the same way. And the wording, the choosing of the words is very specific. And I always pay attention to this. Okay, what are they doing now? For example, let's say I'm watching CNBC and I all of a sudden see a particular theme. I immediately start to switch channels. Are they saying the same thing? And invariably, I would say 90% of the time, maybe more so, they're telling you the same story. So if they're saying the same thing, that means they're getting the same script. Obviously, why would they be at exactly the same time? It's like a psyop on a massive scale, because most people get their information from these mainstream outlets here. You and me, we're outliers here, and the people that follow our work, they're few and far between. If you look at, unfortunately, and I mean this in the biggest way, unfortunately, you and me, our followers, collectively, we don't even scratch the surface as to what the mainstream media gets. But again, that's their mechanism here. It's just, feed people this, have them look there, and make them, think their lives are beautiful and dandy, and there's going to be some kind of a saving grace coming for them. It sets them up for a great fall. And that's what people are being set up for, a great fall at multiple levels. So if we can control at least some of that, realizing what's going on here, understanding what actions we need to take, and realize, again, the biggest thing here, okay, they want us, again, to hate each other. Okay, the right wing wants you to hate the left wing. The blues want you to hate the. This is just the way it is, and that mechanism gives them enormous power, putting us against each other. But if what do they hate? What do they hate more than anything else? People congregating, like-minded people getting together here because there's power. They want to keep you separated. They want to keep you not looking at each other, not seeing facial expressions. This is all huge. Okay. We live in a crisis to crisis mechanism. Obviously, I think it's very possible that we're going to see obviously expanding crisis, another crisis come up here moving forward here, but it's not going to be, at least in my perspective, in the markets. They got to keep them propped up. They won't allow, we're in a full-blown banking crisis, and people don't even understand what's going on here. I mean, I study this stuff around the clock, as you know. I can tell people that beyond any shadow of any doubt, the entire financial system right now is being consolidated. They're allowing certain institutions to fail, but they're going to hide this from the public. Again, nobody knows until everybody knows. So you don't hear anything like this from the mainstream media. But the fact of the matter is, the system is coming apart, and it's coming apart very rapidly. The smaller institutions, the regional institutions, people need to get their cash out of these things, put their cash somewhere else. I think people should not be holding large amounts of cash at all, because it's a dying asset. But anyway, look, as I said, it's multifaceted. But if you look at the root cause of the problem here, that central banks are going to continue to inflate, buy it all, because that's their goal, to be the lenders and buyers of last resort as the economy is in free fall, and that gives us all opportunity here. But the main thing is, don't let them divide us. We need to come together. The more we come together, and the more we love each other, seriously, because, we're one people here on this planet, the better off we're all going to be. The more hate that they can foster in any way they can, the weaker we become as a people, unfortunately.
If central banks persist with inflating the money supply, maintaining low interest rates, and purchasing financial assets, we could see escalating inflation, growing asset bubbles, a widening wealth gap, and increased financial consolidation. These trends may lead to significant economic instability and heightened social unrest as the general public grapples with eroded purchasing power and economic inequality. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the next video.